So we've had a few people on already and in the past, and one of the things that we have typically asked is just, do you have a fun, crazy story, or is there something you would like to share with the Youth Crossing?
With the class?
With the class?
With the class? With the class?
This is not a class, Diego.
I learn things.
All the time.
All
I'm
the
a
time.
lifelong learner.
I'm always in class.
Oh, I should have thought about this. And we even talked about it, I think.
Well, okay. So one thing, we can just have this conversation.
should take this off.
You think that Diego and I are the same person?
You quite literally are. Look at yourself.
Can the
Like,
camera
this is
look at?
just-
The camera's looking at us.
The camera
is
we're,
looking at
we're
us.
quite
Yes.
literally.
green.
Not the same person.
Shoes.
Not the same
First
person.
of all,
I mean-
he's from El Salvador.
Yeah, I am, and he's not from there. If he walked into any of the houses,
Maybe I am from El Salvador.
Listen, if he walked into my abuela's house and said, "Hey,
Abuela's house.
it's Diego, your grandson," she would be like, "No, you're not."
Okay, yeah. If he said that,
Or if I said, "Hey, abuela." This is
exactly what I sound like,
your
yeah.
grandson David.
Yes,
She'd be like, I don't have a grandson David.
right. Because I look.
okay,
Yeah.
but the two of you just interacting and living your lives, same person.
You mean different lives?
Completely.
Okay, yeah, of course. Like, you know, you have different wives, different, children.
We do have
Yeah.
different wives and
Great.
different children. Yeah.
But
this is true.
You're
watched-
only
Yeah,
proving
you're
that we're
helping
not
us.
the same person.
the fact that you changed the way that you dress because I said you guys dress the same is hilarious.
Who said we did that?
Diego?
No, I second guess myself because I don't want to fit into
And
a
then
stereotype
you
that isn't
changed,
true.
And then you changed because you said, David and I might match because we dress
There
the
was a
same.
season that I
Dress the same as
dressed the
Diego.
same as Ryan Peters.
That's also
It's
not
true.
shocking.
And he and I, like, a ridiculous amount of times would walk in and go, I'm
Whoops.
so sorry.
Oh.
And it really was like,
Did you apologize? I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, well, I mean, he technically he was here first. So, I mean, I don't
true.
think that's how that works.
I don't
Yeah,
think
he
that's how it
gets-
works.
he
I think
gets
you guys are
dibs.
just similar.
Yeah.
And it's okay that,
Well,
your
really what it is
mannerisms and
there's
your
like
clothing.
there's a requirement for youth staff
It's true.
dress code. Like, really, you just didn't know that, but
Right.
How come Angela and Elise? That's not true. They do wear the Youth Crossing green sometimes. That's
that's
a
what
real
I'm
thing.
saying. They have come in sometimes, and we match
All of you.
in some way, shape, or form.
But
and maybe not
Yeah.
like to the T, but like colors,
Similar
color
palettes.
scheme,
Yeah.
like shoes sometimes, or like
Yeah.
Vans or whatever. And
So trendy.
But your mannerisms are not all the same. You guys,
What?
you very intentionally watched the way you reacted. I watched that happen, David. You adjusted your reaction.
well, I'm laughing because if there is any similarities, it is not because of me.
Whoa. It's not because of me.
Listen, sometimes as a younger brother, you try to be the same
I don't.
as. Oh yeah, sorry, not younger brother. Dad.
No. No. No.
Father, son.
Yeah. How old do you think I am?
Listen, that was not where I was going with that. I think
Did you just call me old? That's what I just feel like I just
Yeah.
happened.
that's not where I was going. I'm just saying you
What-
could be
yeah.
related.
We could be. Wow.
Well, I don't think we could be. He's from El Salvador. I think we've already
It's
established this.
2024.
Family trees started in
2024.
different areas. They were planted in separate origins.
Origins?
Yeah.
Sorry, go
these,
on,
These
go on.
family trees do not exist in the same garden, if you will. Okay. We're different.
This is
We're
going down a
different people.
theological path that I don't know if we really want to go down.
No, we're really getting into the weeds here.
Yeah.
I'm Diego. He's David.
Okay,
David,
well,
I'm Diego.
with that all being said,
This is
we are
Rachel.
not the same person. I get that sometimes we might dress alike. I'll give you that.
Yeah, sure.
But we are not the
That's
same
where we're in
person.
green.
So, just to kind of kick us off, I would love, Rachel, you are on staff here at the Crossing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? How long have you been around? And yeah.
That's a really good question. So
Do you know?
Let me think about that.
I'm still trying to figure it out. They just kind of throw you out. No, I'm just kidding. No, I am Randall's assistant, and I also help out with the premarital and marital process here at the Crossing. I just kind of hop around, honestly.
You do a lot of administrating, making sure people are doing what they're supposed to do.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
Doing all the detail-oriented things.
Yeah.
It's a hard job.
I enjoy that.
Yeah.
I think it's fun.
You're a theater person too.
Mm-hmm. So right now I'm directing youth theater, but I
Where
also Dayspring School of the Arts.
Okay.
It's a great place if anyone's interested. They have anywhere from like children all the way through adults. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy it, but I also do stage managing. I haven't performed in a while, but I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Well, we are coming to the end of, well, I guess mid-end, to the end of the month of February. And one of the things that like happens in February.
My birthday.
Yeah, your birthday. That's what we're here to
Like
talk about.
My mother's birthday.
Was that
Your
our
mother's
birthday? Never mind.
Okay.
Sorry.
Nope.
No, not
Mine's
those
in
things.
November.
Okay.
No, but I was gonna say before I was rudely interrupted by Diego.
Yeah, it's true.
Is Valentine's Day. I know we're past it now, but I don't know about you guys, but I don't know if it's just because I don't like Hallmarky type holidays, but I don't love Valentine's. That's just me. That's just a me thing. That's a me thing. I don't think it's awful. I don't think it's bad that people like it. But one of the things that oftentimes comes up is this dealings with like, do I have a boyfriend or girlfriend? Do I not? Either feeling left out, which is why in some ways like Galentine's Day has come about or whatever. And so I thought it'd be interesting for us to just talk about dating and relationships and thereof. So to kick us off, I'd love to hear, obviously, we're past the high school, middle school ages.
We are.
But
It's
what
true.
was your dating life like back in middle school and high school?
Ooh.
Whoever
Would you
wants
like
to
to go
start
Am
first?
I going? I guess I can go first. There's nothing wild. I guess if I had to describe it, it'd probably be a little clunky or messy.
It's a good word. It's a good
Yeah,
word,
we didn't.
Funky?
Yeah, just I don't know. It's just confusing. Like we
Yeah.
didn't talk a lot about it at home, and so it's just kind of a lot of make it up as you go along. We're
Right.
just gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, middle school and high school are hard enough on their own, and trying to figure that out was a little confusing. So
yeah.
Did you have lots of boyfriends or just a
Um,
few? Or
so
did you date a long time, a short amount of time?
in high school, I had a few, but they were like longer periods of time. Middle school, it was that like not relationship sort
Uh-huh.
of situation.
Yeah.
So that's all relative.
Yeah. One of my first relationships in middle school was I was on the track team, and like my and I feel like this is true for a lot of places. Like the athletes, I feel like are the popular kids a lot of times or whatever.
Sure.
And so I really wasn't a popular kid, but then I got into track, and our track team went as a middle school, which whatever this means, I don't know what this means. It means really not a whole lot. But our track team got were state champs.
Oh,
State champs.
Like, and I don't know.
that is actually impressive.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm just like, in middle school, like, what does that mean? It means really nothing. But we were state champs, and I won a bunch of my like races or whatever because I guess I don't know. Back when I was in middle school, I was quick. In high school, I wasn't. But there was a girl specifically that I liked, and because I had done so well, like she started, like I asked her out. We had sat next to each other in class or whatever, and I asked her out, and she was like, yeah. And you know, back in middle school, really all that dating was like you held hands in between classes. That was about the extent of what it was.
You sit next to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then her friends made fun of me, or like made fun of her because
Oh,
of me.
that hurt.
And so one period we were dating, one lunch, and then by the next period she came up to me in the middle of the hall and broke up with me. That was like
That's
one of the most traumatic relationship
no.
moments in my life.
That is like impressively short.
Yeah.
That's
Hours.
It's almost
hours.
perhaps a record.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
You talk to
One
Guinness.
period. Is that technically one passing period? Or like
No,
two
no.
passing periods?
It was
or like-
two. Yeah, it was two passes. So it was like for like second period or whatever it was, lunch. The next period, and then after that one,
okay.
she broke up. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
So I
almost
walked
half
her.
the
I walked
day.
her to like walked her to class like twice.
Very
and
kind of
valleys.
you. Meanwhile, she's like thinking through, how do I break up with this guy?
Oh no,
That's
and it probably only happened like a couple. I don't know. Who
I
knows?
had relationships like that too.
Yeah.
I was, gosh, I really liked girls.
Yeah.
And I think it just started out as like I think my first real crush wasn't even a girl that I like really liked, but it was a girl that every guy in my grade liked. And so I just felt like, well, to be cool, I guess I'm just going to like that girl too.
Yeah.
And then it turned into, every guy in my grade wanted a girlfriend. And so then I just wanted a girlfriend. So I would say from the age of 13 up, my goal in life was to not be single. And it didn't matter how I went across, how I asked people out, or how long our relationships were. Because I had a relationship that was 2 periods long. And
Okay, thank you.
I feel like I'm missing out.
That
I've
makes
never
me feel
had
a little
that.
I've had one of those. I've had relationships that were like 2 weeks long.
Yeah.
And like in middle school, sometimes you just get really excited and the I love you comes out just because you want to fast track things. And then they come back and they're like, actually, my dad said I can't date you. And then you're like, oh, my heart is broken.
Oh.
Thank you. So yeah, I think it was clunky and confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good. It is a good term.
It's a great term.
Yeah, and I similarly like in high school, I honestly didn't date a lot of people, but I had like really long relationships.
Mhm.
And I kind of look back on some of that now and just go, man, like how much of my effort and mentality and time was spent over that dating relationship when there was probably so much more
Yeah.
that I could have done or experienced or whatever, but I was so wrapped around that dating relationship that it like
Yeah.
just, I wouldn't say it just took up all of my time. It
Yeah.
just took up all of my time.
You look back and you're like, why did I care so much
Yeah.
about dating?
You're just in it, and it feels like such a huge deal at the moment. And it is like it's all that you can think about. It's all your friends are talking about. It's all everyone else is. And by the end of it, it's like, oh, that was a whole period of my life. That
So-
I just
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's kind of talk about that for a second. Why do people even date in the first place? What do you think? One, why do you think people do that, or why do we do that? And two, what do you think the purpose of dating is? I know those are kind of deep questions,
Big
but
questions.
Yeah. I mean, I can take a stab at like the why do people date? Because I feel like that is just one, you enjoy being around people. Being by yourself is not the most fun place to be always. And it's not, if you're not comfortable with that, like having another person around is nice. And that's not always a bad thing. Like
Yeah.
it's a basic need to be in community.
gosh, I would say that even God has designed us for this
Yeah.
sense of relationship, not just with Him,
Yeah.
but with each other, right? Like we're supposed to be in
Yeah.
relationship with other people, but like specifically, dating's a slightly different. So yeah, I don't know if there's more to that.
Yeah. It's nice. I don't know. And like it sounds shallow, but I don't think it is. Like it's nice to be appreciated and it's nice
Totally.
to be known and like this person knows me and they have like, it's almost like a best friend, but more because you
Yeah.
get that like intimacy almost of like this person knows me a little bit deeper.
Yeah,
Right. And then when you get to know somebody deeper, they start to see like your insecurities and who you are like behind closed doors. And when they continue to show you that attention and appreciation, it makes you feel even better.
Yeah.
And that's when you become hooked like, oh, this is what I want to feel like all the time.
Yeah.
But I think it leads to a belief that that kind of affection and attention is only experienced through dating, you know? And then but the truth is, like, the affirmation and attention you can get in a dating relationship is true even in a friendship.
Yeah.
Or in just people you meet every single day. It goes back to what you said, like, God created us for community. He didn't write about dating in the Bible because he just said, be kind to each other, love each other. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and most of those relationships that we see, when we see this idea of a relationship with, just another person, when we're talking about friendships or that kind of relationship, he characterizes it in a lot of what you're saying. But I would take it one step deeper and say that I think one of the reasons why it is nice to be wanted,
Yeah.
right? There's something about that sense of just wanting someone to see you as valuable. And we're longing for that. Not just from a dating relationship, like you're saying, from our friendships and stuff too. And there is something about a dating relationship that just causes you to go, this actually feels really good.
Yeah.
And you're wanting more of it. And it almost causes you to spend more time wanting it. And it's this kind of cycle of like, this feels good. I want more of it. This, and it's, kind of this back and forth. But what can eventually happen is it can go back to what I was saying earlier, which is like, I eventually, so much of who I was and what I did or whatever was so wrapped up in my dating relationship that it kind of took over. And so what are some, this is going to be kind of out of left field a little bit, but what are some, like, okay, so that's why people want to date. What are some basic principles or basic things that we should be thinking about when it comes to dating, and what parameters would you suggest for people as they're looking to date and as they're looking, because ultimately we have to be careful about it to some degree, because it's not who we're. The other person is the other person. There's a point where I end and they begin.
Yeah.
And where they end and I begin, meaning we're our own people. My whole identity shouldn't be wrapped up in the other person.
Right.
So if we were talking to these students here, how do we help them wrestle with that?
I think it's important to remember that you and your dating self, like in a relationship, is still you. And so how you approach life and how you are existing kind of still fits into that. Like, my purpose as a human being is to bring glory to God. Like, that is my purpose. And so in a relationship, that's still my purpose. Like, that's the grid that I'm like looking through of like, okay, how do we set boundaries? How do we create this beautiful relationship? Okay, but like, is it God honoring? Like, well, one, have I prayed about this? Like, how am I, like, it's still the way that I live my life, but it's now in a relationship, but I'm still the same person. It's still the same goal.
Yeah. I grew up thinking that, it was loving to drop my own needs and my desires. And so I wouldn't go into it thinking, I would say, yes, I'm my own person, absolutely. But I would also go into it thinking who they are matters more than who I am. And so I would jump in, and if they wanted to do things that I was not comfortable doing, but I felt like if I said no, then they don't want to spend that time with me anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well then I'm going to have to sacrifice that because I so desperately want the attention of this person.
Yeah.
So how did you resolve that then? Because I hear what you're saying. Like, there is this, again, going back to where I end and they begin, and but you're saying, part of what you're saying is you were very quick to give up yourself
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
say, well, I need to sacrifice this and this because like I'm in a dating relationship. There needs to be, I mean, part of dating is there is sacrifice. So how do you reconcile those two things? How do you?
Yeah. I think that we in life, we try to like come off as humble and kind and like we're willing to put the other person first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we believe that in order to do that, sometimes the extreme is the only solution. You know, like I'd rather, instead of being completely arrogant, I have to be completely so humble that now I think so little of myself. And so then so then it ends up happening as you start sacrificing everything. And I think what I had to learn was humility is not one extreme or the other. It is a balance of, I completely understand you. I completely understand what you want, and you deserve what you want, and I deserve what I want just as much. And I don't think I learned that really until it's when I was single, like when I had a chance to work on myself. When I would have conversations with you about life and faith, and realize like, man, I don't need to be, like just like there's like the stereotype of like the guy in a relationship who's like the chivalrous, opening all the doors and like just offering everything up. I don't need to be that guy. If I don't want to do that, if I don't feel like opening the door, I can let somebody else open their own door. Like it's that kind of thing. Like I deserve to be treated as I'm treating others.
You should be opening doors.
Well, yes, I should be.
Don't
And
let
I open my wife's
They're
door
going
all the
through.
time. Madeline's door has not been opened in years. So
Good.
that's on my resume.
Think about all the muscles she's not using.
That's true.
I'm just kidding.
She forgets how to like, I don't know how to do this
Wait,
now.
I was just staring at a door handle. What do I do here?
What did you do when you're not around?
Well, so yeah, I think one of the things when you're looking at a dating relationship, this has just been my own personal conviction of so much of my identity was wrapped up in the relationships I had when I was in high school, and I realized that I had a want for relationships, and it was to make me feel good. It was to, it was really about like, even though you like you're saying, like even though you were willing to sacrifice whatever, it was still about making you feel good because they wanted
100%.
And so the trick when it comes to, I think when it comes to dating relationship, it ultimately, like dating relationships is when it boils down to, we need to be satisfied with who God has made us to be, and not long or find that that need, that desire from somebody else. Because there, kind of after high school, I dated a few different people, and I realized over the course of that time that like I was looking so much for just affirmation from these great women who, great girls who were just like dating me or whatever, and I was dating them, but like I was so focused on myself and what I was getting from them that I didn't realize that I wasn't getting that from God. And so and it took a break for me, like you were saying. It took a break where I really became like secure in who God has made me to be, that I was like, okay, I think I can move on from here and now be open to dating or whatever.
Right.
And I know that's tough because there are pressures to dating, right? This idea of there, like, or even if you think about marriage too, there's this sense of like, you go to school, you graduate, you go to college, you get a career, you get married, right?
Right.
But the truth is, marriage isn't the end all be all thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's good. But ultimately, the end all be all thing is our relationship with God. And so that's always been kind of the thing that's wrestled with me in that. So for you, Rachel, how I know you have kind of wrestled with some of this over the years or whatever. I'd love to hear just a little bit, what other advice or like for the guys out there, what advice would you give in regards to, I do want to date somebody, but what do I do? Or what is that all about? Or
I think the most helpful thing I can think of is you need to know where you stand with Christ. You need to know where you're at, because you can't move forward in a relationship if you don't know where you are. And in you can't set boundaries if you don't have a good framework for okay, here are my own boundaries with God. Here's where my expectations are. Because if we're being honest, the greatest representation of marriage we have is Jesus and the church. That is the best representation. And so if you don't know where you are with Jesus, how are you going to then replicate this? Well, you can't, because it's perfection. But you need to know where you are there and have a solid relationship there. And then from there, I think is a really healthy spot to go, okay, I can have a better understanding of what I'm even looking for in a dating relationship. What do I want? We're always feel like we're very focused on what other people bring to a relationship. It's what do you bring to a relationship?
Right, yeah.
Are you a good leader? Are you a good, are you someone that can be trusted? Are you stable?
Right. Yeah.
And what do you mean by stable? When you say stable, what do you mean?
Are you someone that somebody else can count on? Can they count on you? You don't have to be perfect. That's not anything that anyone can promise, but are you solid? Would you be friends with you? Would you want to date you? I think that's a good place to start looking.
If you asked me in high school, I would have said no.
Yeah, same.
That's funny. That's funny. Because there is something to that, right? Of, and when you say, are you stable? Are you reliable? Some of where that comes from is kind of knowing who you are, knowing who God has made you to be.
Yeah.
And because of that, you're not worried about finding your identity in the other person at that point. You know who you are.
Yeah.
And you know how God has made you to be. So you're going to be that. And there is something about that is winsome. Anyway, what do you think a healthy Christian relationship looks like? This can be a very long discussion.
That's so tough, because people are we're all so broken, and we're all dealing with some level of insecurity, and so when we go into relationships, we are looking for something, and we're looking for something to be filled. It's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily wrong to hope that the person you're in a relationship with would sort of, hear you on your insecurity and say it's okay to not feel confident in the way you look. I'm going to tell you that you look great. But to go into it feeling oh, I'm expecting you to fill that gap for me.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. So it's hard. Healthy, I think health starts with honesty and vulnerability.
What does honesty look like?
Honesty, I think, honesty isn't an extreme, I think I would say. So what I mean by that is, I don't think, unfiltered conversation is the kind of honest I'm talking about. I think filtered in the sense of the filter is love and the filter is compassion, and I'm not going to just spew out all my emotions on you and expect you to hold everything. But I am going to be honest if you've upset me. I am going to be honest if I'm struggling with something.
So part of what you're saying is communication. There is a level of being open, honest to talk about the things that you're dealing with, the things that you're frustrated about, the things that that are like good in the midst of the relationship, things that you're worried about in life. What else?
Just to add on to that, like the reason I say communication is Madeline and I have been together for a long time now, but a big chunk of our relationship was 4 years of long distance. So we did two hours away from each other, which in hindsight isn't that far. But when you don't have a car, you do have a car, but it's a 200,000 mile car, Toyota Camry. It's not great. Anyway, but so much of it, the only really reason it lasted was communication. We had to learn. I need to be intentional with how I talk to you, when I talk to you, and the words that we say are so important. And we tell people all the time, if it wasn't for those 4 years, we would not be together now, because we went through so many ups and downs and had to learn how to be honest and vulnerable with each other. So, yeah.
I would say not making your relationship a secret. Somebody should know about your relationship.
Interesting.
What do you mean by that? So say more.
I think I have seen like recently, and I've had friends talk to me about like, your relationship is private. It's between the two of you. And while I would agree with that, like it is between the two of you, yes, there needs to be solid, healthy, I would argue maybe a little bit more mature people speaking into your relationship. And that comes with you knowing who you are and being able to listen and take that in and not just take on okay, I will do everything they say. Perfect. There's some things where it's like, okay, that doesn't apply, but you know yourself well enough and it's healthy enough and you can have that discussion. But I think it's healthy to have healthy community around you to maybe seek out things that you may not see.
That's good.
And I think what's hard sometimes about that is like, I think all of us would say, oh yeah, I want advice from people. I want guidance and like you're saying, not just from necessarily our peers, sometimes our peers, but maybe, and you said the word more mature.
Yeah.
Is that?
Like, I think of like some of my, like I have a sister who's a little bit older than me and like she has seen more things than I have. She's had more relationships than I have had. And so, or like there are other adults in my life that like who are a little bit older than me who I can call in and go, hey, this thing has happened. Do you have anything that if you ever experienced this, what would you advise? And it's not like a moment for them to be a second parent.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not what that is. And if you feel like somebody is doing that, you have the grace to go, hey, maybe this isn't the relationship I need to be pouring into. Maybe I find somebody else who can healthily walk me through this.
Yeah. Well, so the piece that I think is really helpful though in the midst of that is that it's somebody a little further along or somebody a little bit like just level-headed is another piece to that I think is really good. But then if I were to take that one step further, because Diego and I have talked about this a lot, is then listen to the advice.
Listen to the advice.
Like the number of times where I have talked to different guys specifically about their relationships, and I have been like, hey, pay attention to this. Like, this doesn't seem like it. Like, I kind of know where this is going to head. And the number of times they're like, yeah, no, you don't. And then on the back end, they're like, how did you know? Well, like, I mean, I kind of told you because I have made the same mistakes, or I've done, or I've put myself in situations, or I've seen this happen with another person or whatever. And I obviously wouldn't share names, but I think that's one of the big, I love that you're saying having somebody who can speak into your life for that.
I just think it's interesting that we seek out mentors in like careers and in like different aspects of our lives. But there's this tension of like seeking out mentors and like when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Like what's the difference? Because you want it just as bad. You would suppose you would want a healthy.
Well, and maybe it's even more consuming than a career or like a sport or whatever than anything else, because it consumes more time. You think about it more.
I think what gets me, and when I feel myself pushing back against like advice that somebody has given me, is that it feels very personal.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just, hey, you should like look into that for the sake of like this relationship. It's, hey, so there's this thing that you might be doing wrong. And that feels a little personal because it is.
Yeah.
But it's in love, and it is like, I'm telling you, you're doing this thing that could hurt you because I love you. But it's hard to hear sometimes.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned communication, honesty.
Right.
You mentioned mentors, somebody who can guide you or whatever. The other one that I would say is, and I've kind of already hinted at it already, but it's boundaries.
Yeah.
I think the thing that transformed my relationships towards the end of my dating life was I just set, like, as far as a healthy, Christ-centered relationship, is because I set boundaries for myself, because I knew who I was, I knew what he wanted of me, I had people in my life who were speaking to me, and now, like, I'm able to talk, I'm able to be honest and communicate the boundaries that I have.
Yeah.
And even still to this day, my wife will be like, yeah, like, you were just really, not like, I don't think she would use rigid, but like, I was very like firm about my personal convictions of like how often we would spend time together, or mainly I wanted her to have her own life. Like, her world didn't need to be wrapped around my life.
Right.
And my life didn't need to be wrapped around her life. And so like, we had lots of time together, but we also had times where she hung out with her friends, she did other things, and I did the same. And it was just good. It was I think what ended up leading that to being, where we ended up getting married, because we kind of did a lot of those things. We both did. And we had, to say it, we had tough moments too.
Yeah.
Where we did disagree, and some family issues bubbled up, and it's like, well, let's talk about this, because clearly you're acting this way, or you're doing this, or I'm doing this because of my family background, and your family background is different than mine, and whatever. And it's like, well, let's talk about it, because what just happened was not okay, right? And sometimes it was stuff that I did, sometimes it was stuff that she did, or whatever. And back to you, it's like, we had to have the space to be honest and whatever. So that's all great.
Yeah, and I think all three of those things all lead to, if you're not practicing any one of them, you're not going to have any hard conversations with the person that you're with.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not communicating clearly, then they're not going to know how I'm feeling, and they might not have the chance to disagree with me. If I'm not getting input from other people, then their advice might disagree with that person. We have to have another hard conversation. If I'm not practicing a boundary, they might disagree about my boundary, and we have to have conversations about it too. So, and that is also a big piece of it, is be willing to have a hard conversation about stuff, you know?
But I feel like in order to have all of these things, it goes back to earlier where it was like, okay, but where are you?
Yeah.
Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? Do you know whose you are? And like, what are your personal boundaries? How do you communicate? What's going on? How are you going to communicate those things to a different person? Yeah.
And by whose you are, you mean?
Like in Christ, like you are God's child.
Amen.
You are worthy. And so that worth doesn't come from another person. That comes from God. And so you have to know that beforehand, before you get into those arguments. I would love to call them discussions, but they are. It can be a fight sometimes. Before you get into those issues, you need to know those things so that you don't cause other issues.
That's great.
So good.
Well, Rachel, thanks so much for being here. Seriously, dating relationships are just not the easiest to navigate and to figure out. And so we love having these kinds of conversations. So this doesn't have to be the end of it by any stretch. I'm sure this raised up other questions for you. But thanks for watching, and catch us later.
Nice.